Now, as we start using the well, some things will start to happen. In this case, if we pump it hard enough, the water table starts to drop. And you know, if we end up pumping it down to where the water table keeps dropping and dropping and dropping, if the water table were to drop to this layer right here, that becomes a new water table. Now the water would stand that high in the well, see? Now you'd need a pump to be pumping it out. But it would push itself up in the well. So oftentimes you hear about people drilling a well out here, say, well, we went down 150 feet, but the water stands at 30 feet. So they drilled down here, but the water pushes up and stands in the column quite a ways up in the column. That's simply because that's where the water table pressure is on that particular well. In fact, there's many, many wells here in this valley in the winter, early spring, actually spring and early summer, when they've really recharged the full aquifer, because these things get, in the shallow aquifers, they get recharged yearly from the winter precipitation in this area. Their wells will actually come right up to the surface in the spring and early summer. Then as everybody starts to irrigate, they start to drop. And then they're at their lowest in October and November. That's when we hit our, well, actually probably about mid-October is when we hit our lowest water time. The wells are starting to fill back up again now. It started raining. Usually around mid-October it starts to rain in this town enough to start recharging. Because if it's raining up in the mountains, it's recharging the underground water here in the valley. Because it's coming from up in those mountains, most of it, and it's working its way down through the rock formations from up in the hills.
Okay, if a well went dry, would it make like a noise, like you sucking out of a cup and drank all your soda or something?
If the well went dry, would it make a noise? No, a well does not make a giant sucking sound. Your pump would just start pumping air. And if you ran it very long, it would burn up, because a pump running dry, almost every well pump is relying on water to be the lubricant. And if there's no water there, the lubricant and the coolant for all the mechanical parts that are touching each other, if that coolant and lubricant isn't there, it gets real hot real fast and it'll seize up. Now you should have a low pressure switch to sense that and actually shut it off if you get to the point where you're pumping air. It doesn't just drop out totally instantly. You get the forewarning. It'll start belching air. And you'll start getting gulps of air coming in with the water. Well, that's a real key that you're running out of water in your well. And it's a very common occurrence. In an area like Walla Walla Valley, it's a very common occurrence. There's a lot of wells that will get to the point where they'll run dry if they're pumped real hard in the summertime. So a lot of people, they know they can only run their well for 1 or 2 hours, and they have to shut it off and wait for 5 hours. Let it recharge. They can run it an hour or two again. How does that happen? Well, let's take a look.